I'm just going to devil's advocate on the argument here, right? Which is, okay, let's imagine wins an election. This is the policy. Clearly, this is the federal. Clearly there's a way to get a ban removed in the Senate. All the rest of it. How are you able to achieve the sites if the local state governments that presumably have some say, because this is instrumentality that is formerly state-owned, now private, is it a public domain thing where in the same way that governments turn around and say, we're taking this bit of land because we need to build a highway, is that the type of process that a federal government would be able to do?
Well, that's what he was talking about today when he talked about the power that's given under the Constitution to compulsorily acquire land with just and fair terms being paid. And also there's good old section 109 of the Constitution where laws differ.
So it's great that these premiers all play their games, but there is a way to make it happen.
There is a way to make it happen, but the most important thing is this. The basic cost of renewables only requires the government and the taxpayer to find 1.3 to 1.5 trillion.
Correct.
Trillion.
Correct.
Because you cannot take the wind and the sunshine and put it in your house or this studio
and the wires end up being different. Yeah.
It has to have a huge construction cost. Now, the beauty about the proposition that Mr. Dutton has put up is that the actual amount of land that is taken to deliver this cheaper energy is very small. It's the existing site of coal-fired power stations and the existing water for cooling and the existing grid, poles and wires, continue to be used. You don't have to destroy forest. You don't have to destroy farmland. You don't have to find this huge volume of money, which, quite frankly, we can't afford.
So, Stephen, to the scare campaign. Right now, we saw Andrew Lee, one of many, I'm sure, who's turned around and done the three-eyed Blinky Bill, and the Sydney Morning Herald's already off to the races with the Homer Simpson stuff, all of this stuff. But what I did say at the start of the show, now I understand the prevailing logic instantly going, hang on, well, how does this affect politically, right? The majority of the country, from the IPA to the Guardian in terms of public polling, has changed their view on this. So we're not starting from a position that maybe, yes, 5-10 years ago, you were arguing from the 30% position you're trying to push up and over the top. Now, we saw when it came to The Voice, which again, I understand that they're not the same thing, but again, everyone's collective opinion was in one area and there's only one result that's definitely going to happen here. But should Labor be cautious in their assumption that the majority of Australia is against an idea that apparently the majority of Australia, theoretically, when it's not their backyard, when it's not their money, when it's a few years away, but still, they are for right now?
Look, when it comes to the polling, and you've correctly identified, it's a range of polling, so I don't think it represents anybody's perspective, being pushed. But the meat of the detail hasn't been included in those questions. I mean, it's like saying, do you believe in, world peace? I mean, everyone's going to sign up to it.
Or action on climate change.
So at the moment, people have been hurting. Yeah, or action on climate change, agreed. Yeah. So people will generally tick yes in that box. Now what Labor has to do is demonstrate that there are enormous flaws in Dutton's proposal. I don't think that they could just say, naturally assume there is opposition. People are hurting and they are tempted by this idea that there is cheaper electricity prices from this source and it is renewable. When they understand that those cheaper prices can't possibly kick in until 2040, because that's the first time one of them pretty much is going to get switched on, then they might begin to think, well, just a minute, we're going down this path of renewables, and we're going to be able to, build enough renewables. People will argue about that, but build enough renewables to supply the grid. Or we could wait to 2040 and keep doing not that much about, coal-fired power stations, which are mostly closing down. So I think Labor can't just lazily think, everyone's opposed to this. I don't think that will work for them. I think they've got to do the hard assessment and demonstrate why this plan has so many holes. And the problem initially is that there's not enough detail, or there's not even close to enough detail, to be able to make those arguments. So there'll be a bit of skirmishing backwards and forwards, but it's incumbent on Dutton to say how much, say what technology, and answer a whole bunch of other questions. And then the polling will have a more substantive meaning because there'll be some meat in the argument rather than the slogan, than the slogans backwards and forwards.
So, Bronwyn, again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I knew it would be 60-40 no when it was 60-40 yes. I just didn't know how much flexibility there was, but you were certain. So how do they win the early stages of this conversation? Because, again, most of the media is going to come out and go, he's doing what?
Well, on that basis, if it's all so bad, this nuclear concept, we don't think we should send any Olympians to the Paris Games because all the electricity is going to come from nuclear power stations.
Great point.
So we should ban sending Olympians to Paris.
Great point.
The argument is so stupid. Yeah. The rest of the world can cope with it, and that's what Australians are seeing. Right. And the thing is that people in Australia are saying, yes, we do want something done about climate change, but no, we don't want to pay the big bucks which are sending us broke, are sending people manufacturing out of business. What they are seeing now from Mr. Dutton, who was clear-eyed and quite straightforward in everything he had to say today, is there is another option. Yeah. And this one will serve the country better. And it's in the national interest.
All right, good stuff. I have a feeling we'll talk about it a lot in the next few years.